Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Game Changer Mentality podcast. I am your host, Rodney Flowers, bestselling author, keynote speaker, and resilience trainer. And again, and as always, I'm excited to be here with you again today. Thank you for listening on another episode of the Game Changer Mentality podcast. If you are new and listening for the first time, I want to welcome you to the show, welcome you to this podcast. I am delighted that you are here and you've decided, out of all the podcasts that are out there, you've decided to listen to us today. Um, so, a lot of you guys know what my mission is about and what being a game changer is all about. And one of the things that I'm really passionate about is that everyone wants to be successful. I don't know anyone who does not want to be successful. And the thing about it is, a lot of us don't feel that we can get really where we want to go. Like there's a certain level that we feel like we can get to and we strive to reach it. But I'm talking about like if you could really live the life that you really wanted to live. A lot of us don't feel like we can get there. And then we see people who are very successful, the stars, the athletes, the actresses, the singers, the rappers, all of those people, the real estate investors, the business gurus, those guys are really doing it. And we would like love to do that. Like, who wouldn't want to live that type of life? But a lot of times we feel like, we can't do that. Like that's a little out of reach for me at this point. And a lot of us have challenges and obstacles, those things, and how we can get over those things. How do we deal with those things? And you know what? What if I could reach that goal that I really want to reach in my life? And maybe I won't be a star, maybe I won't be an actress, maybe I won't be a business guru, but there's something that I really would like to pursue and really would like to change in my life. And so I have a guest here today whom is a beautiful and interesting young lady whom I want you guys to meet. And she's going to talk about that very thing. You see a lot of people, you hear a lot of people in this industry, and they have success stories. They've made $1 million. They've done, all these business deals, or they have like billions of followers. And it's like, well, how do you do that? And they're selling their products on how, this is how you do it. This is my roadmap. These are my strategies, blah, blah, blah. But this young lady right here takes a different approach. And so I love it. She's a game changer. She has game changer mentality. And I want to welcome her to the show. Miss Sachiko, welcome to the show, lady.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. I love it. I love that setup because the more you were sharing that, the more and more I realized what a psychopath I am in this in this journey. And I think it's so important what you were saying about, we all want to be successful and we all want to create greatness in our lives. And yet sometimes we can hear from all these really successful people. That's I'm, working my full-time job, but I really want to start a business. And even though I see what you did that worked for you, I need someone to help me understand how to go from exactly where I'm at to the next step. And I think for me, it's taking my life experience. I'm certainly no, expert on success, but I'm an expert on resilience. I'm an expert on how to get from kind of the chaos I experienced in my life into a place where I really genuinely believe that anything is possible. And so instead of waiting until I'm sitting on my mountain and telling everyone how to get on the mountain with me, I am right in the middle of the chaos of pursuing my dream and going for my goals and taking people along that journey with me and encouraging people basically from the side, encouraging people as we go to make one step after the other so that we can get there. And it's a little crazy because I don't have, like I said before, I don't have a crystal ball that says this is exactly where we'll end up. And I know for sure. And that's a safer approach. But like I was talking to a guy the other day who struggled with suicide and depression. And he was actually in the middle of, about to commit suicide in his car one night. and something in him, kind of snapped, and he decided to make a phone call. And he didn't call, you know, the person who's never struggled with suicide, or who, has been amazingly happy for 100 years and can't relate to that place anymore. He called his buddy who also struggles with suicide and suicidal thoughts and depression. And his buddy was able to help, talk him out of that moment and get him to help him move to a place where he's in a much healthier place right now. And so it's my belief that, there's experts and gurus, all those people are so important and there's a place for them. But I think what's missing is the people that will stand by you and walk with you toward your goal, or your dawn, as I call it, or your dream or your purpose. And we need each other. And so I'm, through my podcast and through my music and through the things that I'm creating, I'm holding that space for people to be real about the struggle and also be really excited about what's possible and build that community together. And it's exciting.
Wow, I mean that's I admire that and I commend you for that. Thank you for being that person. Um, and that's very different, because most people don't want to be seen when they're struggling. Like it's easy to be in the limelight, it's easy to be on the front lines when things are going good. But what I'm hearing you say is you want to live a life through your journey where you're exposed, you're vulnerable, and you're allowing people to see this is what it's really all about, like the behind the scenes look
Yeah.
at what it takes to reach your dream. Like, so because a lot of people, that very thing is the reason why a lot of people won't pursue their dreams. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a bit of a paradigm shift. And so what would you say to someone who has this dream, but then as there's the fear of failing, there's the fear of not reaching the dream, there's the fear of the struggle being too uncomfortable. What do you say
Mm-hmm.
to all of that?
Well, so I regurgitate what was said to me. So, kind of what created this shift is, for many years, for several years, I've worked in events. So, worked at different companies doing events, eventually started my own event company, and have gotten to do a lot of fun stuff in events. But I was at CEO Space actually in late 2016, and someone asked me, that sort of age old question: if you had $1 billion, what would you wake up and do every day? And in my soul, the immediate answer was music. Like there was no hesitation. It just flared up. I grew up wanting to sing. It was a huge part of my childhood. And it's the love of my life. And so then I'm sitting at this networking event that was day one of, a 5-day like intensive networking experience, going, wait a minute, why am I here? And what am I doing with my life? And how, but I'm an event company, but then I also love music, and I tend to be a little perfectionistic and kind of, like I want to do it. I want to do this event the right way. And so if I'm going to network, I got to talk about the right thing. And, so that was day one. And then the very next day, I sat at a meal table with Tony Bedot. And I talk about this everywhere I go because it changed my life. Tony, I was explaining to him that freak out. Okay, I want to do music, and how do I go from one thing to another? And he said, it's not, you don't have to take this gigantic leap. You don't have to quit your event company. You don't have to change anything. You just have to do 4% every day in the direction of your music, in the direction of where you really want to go, and eventually you'll get there. And what I love about that is 4%, first of all, is very subjective and very relative, but it's also very manageable. Whatever your relative spectrum is, whatever 100 is and whatever 0 is for you, 4% feels very doable. And so instead of undoing everything I had worked so hard for and, quitting working in events, I still to this day have my event company. We still do events all over the country. That 4% meant having conversations with a coach. It meant doing a little more vocal warm-ups each day. It meant sitting down and writing a couple times a week. It meant, you know, singing at church again. It like these little things every day that eventually grew into releasing music everywhere, and like producing and recording my own music. And then it meant performing different shows and House of Blues and it's slowly grown over the last couple years. And what I genuinely believe is we have to take leaps of faith and take risks, but it's not um leaps of what feels like complete impossibility, right? Like, let me just quit my company and do music full time. It's leaps of faith. So it's okay, here's what I believe is possible, and let me take this little baby 4% leap. And those just add up and exponentially grow and grow and grow to the point where now I probably spend more time working on music and podcast and this dream and passion of mine. And I love events. That's sort of my zone of excellence, if you will, and whereas music and connecting with people is that zone of genius. But I spend more time doing what I love now, but it took a couple years to get there because it took time to have the confidence and the faith to get to this place. And so 2 years ago, if someone would have said, you're going to be, doing a podcast and doing all these different things, I would have looked at that mountain and probably not started to climb it at all. But just doing vocal warm-ups, that was doable. And what it does is it kind of puts you in sort of that energetic alignment that continues to pull you toward where you want to go. And of course there's moments where you feel afraid or have to be courageous, but you do it in a manageable way. And so I so appreciate Tony and his perspective and his willingness to share those words with me, because in a very kind of sequential and systematic way, it has really sort of turned my ship from facing in one direction to now facing in a complete opposite direction. But it didn't happen overnight.
I love that, and there's two things I got from what you just said that I would like to share with you. And the first thing is it reminded me of building bridges, if you will, and where we are in our life, however we're making ends meet, whatever we have the capacity to enjoy and discover, that's the bridge. You are where you are as a result of things that you decisions that you've made in the past, things that you've been able to create in the past from the capacity that you are currently aware of, right? Like, and so that's your bridge. That's your bridge. And what I love about what you're saying about your music and podcasting and your dream is that you're currently still building another bridge, you know. And the beauty of this is you don't have to tear down the old bridge in order to build a new bridge. You can build them side by side. You know what? I picked that clarity up from a mentor of mine when I first got into this industry, because the goal is quit the job, do this full time, and so I was ready to dive in and do all of that and just go, all right, I'm all in, 100% committed, beast mode. This is what I'm going to do. I'm a game changer, right? And so it was like, no, like, stop, slow down. This is not how we're going to do this,
Right.
And so it was really bringing that clarity into, use the bridge that you have right now in order to build the bridge. And he actually used the philosophy, if you're in California somewhere and you're able to get across this bridge, why would you tear the bridge down? Even though you want a bigger and better bridge, obviously it's needed, but why would you tear this one down when it's working?
Right.
Leave it up.
Right.
And then build the other bridge right beside it.
I love that. And I I mentioned this on one of the episodes of my podcast, because I'm like, I don't want to come right out and inherently disagree with Tony Robbins, because I love Tony, but he says, if you want to take the island, you got to bring the boats. And some people can interpret that to mean you land on the island and you immediately just, boats are gone, we're in. And what I believe is that you got to get to the island and sort of scope it out a little bit and make sure that this is the actual island you want to take. And once you feel confident that this is your island, then one at a time you burn those boats. It's not something that you do, all in one fell swoop. But I think that that's the message sometimes that's taken from that, is like, all right, let's go. Like you said, beast mode, let's make it happen. Let's get it. And I just think that that is a recipe for disappointment and for disillusionment. And so our emotions, our motivation, our sort of Stephen Covey, like depositing into our personal bank account, um, I think is so much healthier when we do it little by little. And don't get me wrong, I tend to be all or nothing. I tend to be beast mode, let's get it, which is why I freaked out the first day of, CEO space, because I was like, I gotta quit I gotta sell my company. I gotta do music. And Tony just kind of like took me out of chaos and crazy land and just brought me back down to earth and was like, no, just chew the elephant one bite at a time. And that was so, like, because that in my nature, I'll chop that elephant up and blend it and drink it with I don't like slow. Oh, but slow is it's the way of life, and it's okay. It's healthy.
Well,
So
it makes it doable. And when you talk about pursuing
yeah.
dreams, I mean, I think what we were just explaining with, beast mode, going all in, burning the boats, it can be very intimidating for some people.
Mm-hmm.
Some people, don't have that level of aggression. And then, and I think that's why I've heard people say, not everyone could be successful. And I think it's
Mm-hmm.
because of that. It's because, there's a certain level of aggression, there's a certain level of strength and passion and grit that's required. And people will look at that and say, well, I'm a little softer than that. I like to take more of a softer, relaxed approach.
Mm-hmm.
And the message here is, you know what? You too, right? I mean,
Yes.
there, you too can reach your dream, even if you're not 120 beast mode. Even if you're not, you're saying not saying I want to go all in. Like, build your bridge beside the current bridge. That's
Totally.
okay. I love that. And another thing that I got out of what you were saying is the little baby steps, um,
Mm.
because that's momentum. And
Yeah.
for a lot of us, I mean, including myself, in many occasions it seemed like the rock that I was trying to move was so big that I couldn't get that sucker to budge. You know what I mean? It's like, but once we can get a few chip away out, chip some things away a little bit and get it moving and get that momentum going, get some baby steps done. And what you'll have is
Yeah.
you find yourself in momentum. And once you're in momentum, as long as you can just keep that going, things will just keep going and going and going, like the snowball effect. And you
Totally.
know, I just
I love that.
I just love, yeah, I mean, I think, and so the message here is, you know, it's possible. That's what I'm getting from this. And, there's a strategy, there's yet another way of approaching the dream, of reaching, for the dream. And another thing you said about, those little small, you know, changes was like changing the complete direction of your ship. And you've probably heard the story where, you have this boat that's heading in one direction in the ocean, and just the slightest little change can drastically change the direction and the destination of where that boat ends up. So, you know, whatever we have to do, we have to get into momentum. We have to take baby steps. We don't have to go all in, and we can build the bridge right beside the current one. We don't have to give up. Everyone say you have to give
Right.
up. You don't have to. You don't have to give up what you're currently doing, because that makes it too hard. And
Right.
it's hard enough
Right.
as it is, right? I mean, it's difficult. Let's be real. It's difficult enough as it is. And so, what are some of the greatest hurdles and obstacles you've had to overcome in your journey?
Yeah. So one of the things you mentioned is like it's possible, and I think that that's why I feel so obsessive about this mission is because I didn't come from resources. I didn't come from stability. My I was I was born in San Francisco. My brother was born in Irvine a couple of years later, and then my sister was born in Queens, New York. And so my family bounced around a lot when we were younger because my parents were drug addicts and didn't have money, and so they bounced around to live with different family members as much as they could. And then when I was 7, my mom passed away, and and at that time we moved back to Orange County so my aunt could help. Um, but then we ended up living on our own, and so in that process, my dad, who's the drug addict, was not capable of helping to do even the basic things for my younger siblings, like cooking and cleaning and helping with homework. And so at 7, 8, 9, that became my role. So I did all the cooking in the house. I did all the cleaning for my younger siblings and for the household. I remember days on end just, you know, feeling guilty because when my dad was high, he was so much more useful than he was when he wasn't high. I knew when we didn't have money because he wasn't high and he was kind of comatose. And so, several years of that. And then when I was 11, my dad passed away. Um, and then there's a lot of encouraging things that have happened. My aunt adopted me, my brother and sister, um, and we went on to, I think, have a lot more stability in that environment. But she was a single mom of 4 then, and not really capable of helping us work through all of the emotional issues you experience from kind of growing up in that environment. And so I struggled with eating disorders. I struggled with cutting. I struggled with like heavy, just kind of chronic depression. And I think in some ways I still struggle with those things. And so, I mean, the hurdles for me have been looking at this dream of, and when I say music, I don't care about labels and superstardom and all that stuff. I just want to find my little audience and make an impact. And so whether that's 100 people or 100,000 people, who knows? But it's 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 within my kind of ability to create. But I was looking as a kid, I was looking at my dream of being a singer and thinking, well, there's no way, I don't have the resources, I don't have the support, I don't have parents, I don't have people that can help me. And so there's no way that's possible. And I love and appreciate the power of like the visualization, the power of our mind to pull us along this path, because I believe with every fiber in my being that if it wasn't for this crazy dream I had at 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 years old that I would just daydream about constantly. And I mean, literally imagine myself on stage, imagine myself performing, imagine myself just out of that situation. I was constantly visualizing myself out of the house that was, abusive and tumultuous and scary, and in this place I wanted to be. If it wasn't for that, I don't think I'd be here. I don't think that I could say that I've, lived now 30, almost 33 years of life without ever touching a drug, without ever struggling with those kind of addiction issues that most people kind of perpetuate. It's my dream that saved me. And so, but like for a long time I had abandoned that dream because I didn't think it was possible. So I had these dreams, and then as I got older, in high school, senior year, I did really well in school, and my teachers, what college do you want to go to? I'm like, I'm not going to college. I'm going to be a singer. And they're like, well, that's not a very, you know, secure route. You probably shouldn't do that. And so I let kind of myself get talked out of it. I didn't have the belief on my own and the validation in my family. So I didn't pursue it. And And so for years, I abandoned that dream and went for like just kind of corporate, safe, secure route. And I, and I just believe that that dream didn't ever abandon me. God gave me that dream, these passions and these talents and these gifts for a very specific reason. And I believe it's to use my story to help people believe that dreams are possible. Because if I can do it, there's nothing inherently special about me and my story and what I'm doing other than the fact that I just absolutely believe that I can do anything and that it's possible. And so, regardless of what someone else is facing, and not to say that their situation is any worse or better than mine, it's just your story is part of this journey and you can do it too. And, and I think that, like, I think even today, there's still hurdles. It's not, man, I've overcome all these hurdles and now I just every moment believe that anything is possible and there's no struggle in it. I mean, I've spent this last week freaking out about this podcast I just launched, and I don't know if you're doing this with your podcast where you're checking the numbers and checking the downloads, and just I can get really obsessive about that stuff. And I've had a lot of friends go, Sachiko, what you're doing matters. It's going to be great. There's nothing to worry about. And so it's a process. It's a journey. It's an ongoing journey.
Sure. So we're about halfway through the show. Tell people where they can find you if they wanted to learn more about you, reach out to you. Where can they find you?
Yeah. So you can find me on the Wait for the Dawn website, which is waitforthedawn.com. You can also find me at my website, which is sachikotiana.com. That's SACHIKOTIANA.com. And then Wait for the Dawn podcast on Instagram and Sachiko Tiana on Instagram. I'm learning how to be better about social media.
Awesome. Awesome. So something I wanted to talk to you about relative to, some of the struggles that you mentioned earlier, about the drugs and the things like that. And so, I mean, is that an audience that you are looking to help right now? And if not, uh, either way, whether yes or no, let's talk. If it's not, let's talk about what audience you are, reaching out to. And if it is, let's get into that a little bit.
Yeah, so it's definitely one of the audiences I want to connect to is people that struggle with substance abuse. And a few months ago, I reached out to some local substance abuse facilities, and I'm still in the process of building what I call my keynote concert, where I tell my story and sing my songs as part of a talk. So once that's all together in the next few weeks, I want to go out to those facilities and those communities and those groups and just share my story and share my experience, as someone who has seen and experienced a lot of drug and substance abuse related stuff. Um, and and to be able to share with those communities about hopes and dreams. Even the guy that I mentioned who was struggling with suicide, that I just talked to yesterday, he said the biggest thing that helped him out of his alcoholism and depression was pursuing his music and his dream. And so, not that I claim to be an expert on how to overcome substance abuse issues, because I have no idea what that's like, to struggle with it personally, but I want to tell my story in hopes that maybe it helps people in that world. And then, the beauty of podcasts and music is that it's so accessible from everywhere. So, podcasts are typically a more affluent and, kind of less minority audience, more kind of highly educated audience, but everyone can get them on their phone. And so I want to also help open up a broader audience of podcast listeners so that they can get that message too.
And so what would you say? I mean, I really want to dive in here, because there's a lot of, drug addicts or substance abuse um, happening in our society. And so it's a very big issue. And I believe that a lot of those individuals, they want to be game changers. They want to make an impact. And however, this is a challenge for them. And so a lot of them, all they can really think about though, Sachiko, is really getting over the abuse. And so the dream, is kind of a far-fetched thing for some. I'm not saying for all, for some. And so what is your message? And I know you're not an expert, but
Yeah.
what is your message to that person who seems to only be able to see the that particular obstacle? Don't even,
Yeah.
they don't see the dream. So what would you say to that person?
Yeah. Thank you for acknowledging that I don't claim to be an expert, but I think what I find is so powerful for anyone struggling with anything is validation and um, and that and that feeling of being seen and heard. And I think when someone struggles with these types of issues, it can create so much chaos in a family, and depending on how far down that road they go, that they can be kind of deep in that darkness, and whatever hurt they may be sort of masking with these substances. And I think it's just a matter of helping them feel seen and heard and not forgotten, and just as important and just as valued and just as capable as, anyone we see on TV, any athlete, anyone that's living that dream. I think it's helping people feel like their story and their situation and their experience is valid and it matters. And I think what can happen for people who struggle with drug abuse or any sort of addiction related things is it's sort of this browbeating, like, stop it, just like, get over it, deal with it, what's wrong with you, figure it out, like, you're so selfish. The messaging can be really harsh, and and maybe that works for some people, but I think what I've seen be more powerful is is have asking those questions and finding out what's deeper, what's underneath there, what's the hurt, what's the pain, what's the hole that they're trying to fill, or the need that they're trying to meet, and validating that, making it understood, helping them know it's real, it counts, it's not just stupid and they need to get over it, but that it matters. And then from that place, reigniting their dreams. I believe that God gave me a gift of being able to tap into people's passions, and and it makes sense given my crazy mission. And so it would be in conversation, figuring out what is the thing through their body language, through their expression, through their tonality, what is the thing that just lights them up, what's the thing that makes them get out of bed in the morning, and seeding to them the same way it was seeded to me, that in 4% of these manageable ways it's possible, and sort of luring them out of that darkness and into hope and into the dawn and into the dream. And so I think it's not I don't think it's simple, but I think it's just in connecting with their humanity, believing in them, encouraging them, and walking side by side with them toward where they want to go. And what sucks, like, the thing I feel the most frustrated about is that one person can't reasonably do that for everyone. And yet I have this burning desire to help as many people as possible. And so I'm grateful for technology and for the ways that we get to do, the way you're getting to help so many people through this one channel. because there's a lot of people that need this message and the message of hope. And unfortunately, I don't have the ability to talk to them all individually. Um, but I hope I answered your question.
No, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. And
Yeah.
just to add on, I mean, as we talk about this, my heart really truly just goes out to those that are suffering from
Yeah.
substance abuse or addiction. And I think you hit it right on the head. And and I don't think you need to be an expert in order to, you know, recognize what's going on, and then, you know, offer to help create an outlet, because
Yeah.
we've seen all these markets where we say, Black Lives Matter, and Black Lives truly does it matters, and there's other lives that matter, but more importantly, all lives, all lives matter, and even those that are suffering from addiction or substance abuse, and there's a lot of I'm big on diversity and inclusion. I mean, and I didn't mean for the
Mhm.
conversation to go where it's going. I'm really big on that.
Love
And what
that.
I find is that there's a lot of talent in these individuals, and perhaps there were some bad decisions that were made in the past, or perhaps there were some obstacles and challenges that seemed insurmountable. And it seemed like at that particular time, that was the only outlet that particular person could take to suppress
Yeah.
the pain. But I love the fact that you said this so beautifully. You want to reignite the passion and reignite the dream, because that person may have some type of talent, something unique about them that, if brought to the surface, it could change the world. It could change our lives. But yet,
Yeah.
we as a society, we may look at that and say that that person is worthless, and oh, they're delusional, or they're not trustworthy. We can't, they don't matter, and it's all a lie. It's kind of deceiving, if you will.
Yeah.
And if we could reach down and help that person, and give them a place to be seen, give them a place to be heard, because a lot of times the reason why it continues on is because they can't get it out.
Right.
It stays inside, and because it's in, we have to keep suppressing it, because they can't it's the emotions that they're dealing with, because they haven't had a chance to express it, right? And that's we are
Right.
I mean, we're really going deep here, but that's the type of beings that we are expressive beings, right? We are made to express, to create. We're creative beings, and when we are not able to do that, I mean, gosh, of course, we may, revert to, questionable behavior, because we're not operating the way we were designed to operate. And so
Right.
when you don't have that outlet, you don't have that platform, if you will, to be heard and to be seen and to express yourself, it could lead to all kinds of things. And you and I and others who may judge these individuals, it's just by grace, in my opinion, that
Mhm.
you know we've all have challenges. We've had challenges, and it's just by grace that we haven't had a challenge that great that put us in that particular situation. Fortunately,
Totally.
that's something that
Totally.
we should be grateful for, and lean, reach down and help individuals come back up, and live their dream to get over that challenge. And so I think it's important that we take that responsibility on, not just you and I, but I mean,
Yeah.
just even as individuals. I mean, you don't have to have a podcast. Podcast is great. I love my podcast, and I can't wait for yours. And there's other ways that we can, get a message across. But we can,
Mhm.
you never know what your next door neighbor is going through. You never know what the person in the next cube over it's going through. Or, the guy
Yeah.
that's on the block, he may not look too clean, or she may not look too clean, but there's things that we can do to help these folks, and that's what really being a game changer, having game changer mentality is all about.
Totally. I people make fun of me in my life, my family, because whenever there's, a bad guy in a movie or the villain, I always, maybe I'm a little twisted, but I always feel bad for the bad guy in different situations. And not because I don't also feel bad for the victim, but because I just know it, like you said, it's by grace. But I feel like, well, if life had happened to me in the exact same way that it happened to that person, how do I know I wouldn't make similar decisions that they're making? I've not stood in their exact shoes. And so it's easy to sit back and judge and say, well, you shouldn't, or you should, or whatever. And I'm no saint. I judge too. We're human. It's part of our experience. But at the end of the day, I still I don't I'm still going to reflect on those parts of myself and make a conscious effort to validate people in their experience. And validation is so powerful, and so it moves people. You remember, I don't know if you've ever seen the Les Mis movie, with Russell Crowe and some other people. I'm not a big Les Mis buff, but in that movie, I get emotional every time I think about it, because this family kind of lets him stay with them, and he's, not doing great financially. And he stays there one night, and then he's about to peace out, and he steals from them, essentially. And they kind of catch him on his way out, and she recognizes that he stole from them. And instead of throwing him in jail or calling the authorities or whatever, she takes 2 candlesticks and gives them to him as well, and is like, okay, obviously you need these more than I do. And I get emotional every time I think about that, because it takes such a deep love and a deep ability to connect to other people and their experience to have that kind of response, where she would be completely justified in raking him over the coals and giving him what he deserves, but instead shows him so much grace that then he goes on to change his life. And it's a big part of his kind of turning point for his life. And I believe that if we as people could learn how to have that kind of approach to the people and the injustices and all the things that we want so badly to fix and just stop, we would be so much further along in creating the change we want to make, versus justice and punishment and that kind of approach, which I just think there's a place for, but it's not the best way. It's not the most excellent way to help people and to serve people. And and I think for me, then it's taking a step back and starting with how I show grace to myself, and how I handle myself when I disappoint myself, or when I make decisions that I don't love, or we all make mistakes. It's I feel like it starts there. The more I learn how to love myself and feel comfortable and confident expressing myself, and I'm able to look at the mistakes or the failures and not let that mean anything about me, but just learn from it, the more I'm able to give that to people around me. And and the more I try really hard to do that for other people while beating myself up, the less it works.
I mean, that's
So,
beautiful. I mean, I
mm,
think that's beautiful. I was just listening to, I think it was Lisa Nichols not very long ago, and something that I took from what she was saying. She was talking about this very, very thing, but it evolves around loving yourself so much that you're full, and you're full, and you're running over, that you're giving away your love, like you're loving someone else from your saucer, right? You're
yeah,
not giving them the love from your cup. You're giving them your overflow. And I think, going back to what you said about, the way we approach these issues with people in terms of judging or punishing or whatever instead of love, it's because there's not enough love there. And that's the only way that we can see to rectify certain situations, because we don't have enough love to even think about love. It's not the first thought. It's the thought when the damage has been done. Okay. And when you can love yourself enough that you have so much love that you can, even when you've been wronged, you can still love. Even when you know there should be justice, but yet you can still show love. I mean, it takes a lot of love in order to do that. And that's giving love from your overflow.
Yeah, I love that. I love Lisa Nichols. And I just have to say, I love what you're doing with this podcast. I love your story and I love your energy. When I listened to the very first episode and it was just you, and you still were able to be energetic. I tried to record one podcast episode all by myself, and it was like, hey, it's me. Hey guys. I just did not have the same energy that I had with other people. So the fact that you can contain that all by yourself is admirable. And I'm so excited to be a little part of your journey, but it's exciting for me to see other people, you know, standing for growth and for transition and change and improvement, um, especially when they've been through the things that you've been through and come out with just a fire and a grit and a tenacity, and it's so cool.
Awesome. Well, thank you. And we're delighted to have you here. And we're delighted about your show. Let us know how we can support you. And again,
Thank you.
since we're here, I have a couple more questions for you. But since we're at this
Yeah.
point, why don't you again tell the audience where they can reach you if they wanted to reach out and connect with
Yes. So on Instagram, it's at Sachiko Tiana, Sachiko Tiana. And at Wait for the Dawn podcast on Instagram. And then it's just sachikotiana.com and waitforthedawn.com. And I will say on waitforthedawn.com, people who have independent music can submit their music. We share it on the podcast. We do shout outs and kudos. So if you want to shout out someone doing something awesome, or your mom or your brother or your spouse, you can do that there. And then we interview everyday people. And so if you want to be featured on a podcast, you have a story to tell, go to waitforthedawn.com and share it with us.
Wow, I didn't know that. So you're actually providing a platform for people to be seen and heard. You are doing some wonderful work in the world. Now, this is a woman who's not just talking about it, but she's actually doing it. And I love that, Sachiko. That is
Thank
completely amazing.
you.
Thank you for doing that. One more question I have for you before we go. I mean, this is something that everyone deals with. And I don't care what challenge it is, what your color, your background, whatever, it's fear. And I know that you have some big things coming up. You have your podcast and some other things that you're working on. So what is your greatest fear? I mean, can you share with us where you are right now?
Mm,
What is your greatest fear?
yeah. So I would say my greatest fear that comes up for me is, this is sounds funny, but it's shining brightly. So I learned from actually Dr. David Gruder, who I'm sure you know. We sat down a few months ago, and in the process, he's a wizard. I don't know how he does what he does, but in a process of conversation, we kind of went back to this moment in my childhood where it was my mom. My mom and I were in the bathroom together, and I don't know, I I don't know if she was on something or what, but we were looking in the mirror, and she goes, look at you, Sachiko, you're so beautiful, and then smashed my face into the mirror. And so my dad runs in, grabs me, and kind of just kind of throws me out of the room. Like, this is scary. What is happening right now? My mom gets taken away in handcuffs and, in an ambulance. And the memories are a little foggy, but basically after that, she's sort of comatose day after day. I would come home and just look and see if she was breathing still, look and see if she was still had life force. And, you know, shortly after that, she passed away. And so I think what I learned in that moment was that being beautiful, being bright, being seen is very scary. And and I've talked about this before, but you know, he David Gruder helped me work through that and kind of write a letter to my inner child. And every time I mention it, I laugh because that's something I never would have done before that. I just kind of was like, I'm a doer, and so I'm like, just, you know, let me just get stuff done. I don't have time to write a letter to my inner child. But I did that, acknowledging her intelligence for doing what needed to be done to keep me safe at that time, and letting the, you know, 6, 7-year-old Sachiko know it's okay to be seen now. It's okay to shine brightly. But of course, when I think about putting myself out there, and when I think about releasing new music or sharing a video or doing, oh my gosh, Facebook Live and Instagram Live are my arch nemesis. When I think about doing those things, that creates the most sort of terror for me and the most fear, because it's putting myself all the way out there to be seen, to be heard, to be judged, and to be attacked, if you will. And even though I think I've done a lot of processing and grown through a lot of that, I still feel like that's something I battle every day, because my dream involves me being in front of a lot of people and being seen and shining very brightly, and yet there's a part of me that is afraid of that and holds back still.
And that in itself is a process, you know. And just to share with you, I've been there. I haven't had the same journey as you. I haven't had that particular experience, but I will tell you, you know, I do speak, I get out on stage, and I motivate and I inspire people. But I'll tell you, there hasn't been not one show, there hasn't been not one event that before I went on that stage, I was scared to death. You know, and being here, if you would have asked me, you know, if you would have said, yeah, in 2018 you have your own show, blah blah blah, you'd be doing this, 3 books, international bestseller, that would have scared it, you know, it would have scared me, you know, even though I was striving for that and more, it still would have scared me. And you know, as I think about that, I think, you know, there's something to be said about being fearful of yourself, because that's really what you're talking about. You're being fearful of what you're capable of expressing, right? Um, and I think it's because we are so big, and a lot of times we don't give ourselves enough credit for who we are, for what we are, and for what we're capable of doing, of being, and expressing, you know, because we, as individuals, I think we suppress ourselves. I feel at times, you know, when we look at ourselves and we, even if we see, you know, if I see myself being, you know, this great, you know, well-renowned, popular uh, innovator in terms of, you know, books and thought leader, if you will, yeah, right? It's always, and I think this happens for a lot of people, it's always that this the thought that comes behind that, whatever that is for you when you think of yourself outwardly, the thought behind that is always something that seems to kind of bring it down. And then it's kind of like a norm where, you know, don't get too big headed, don't put yourself out there too far, because you know you don't want to set yourself up, or don't think too highly of yourself. But you're made by, you know, the most powerful thing on the planet. Well, it's the thing that made the planet. You know, it's God. It's the universe. It's the all powerful. It's the, you know, it's energy that can't be created nor destroyed. It is the cause and effect of itself. It is the thing that created us, and it's, it that lives in us. We are a piece of it, and we
Yeah.
have those same characteristics. And so, I just feel, and I know we can go on this topic. Probably it's a completely completely new show, but
Yeah.
I feel like we don't give ourselves enough credit, you know,
Yeah.
because of the beings that we are. And I think it should be to no surprise. And I know you want to remain humble, and I think there's a place for being humble, um, and not too cocky. I think there's a place for that. And at the same time, I feel like there's a place where we can rest in the knowing of who we are and what we are capable of.
Yes. Well, I love that, and that has been a big lesson because I think there's more humility in knowing who you are than out of really fear of what everyone thinks, recoiling. You know what I mean? There's a pride, there's an ego, there's all that stuff in being really concerned about making sure people don't think X, Y, or Z about you. But in a knowing of this is who I am, like, if we look at Jesus, or there's so many great examples, and Jesus was like, I am the Son of God, but yet was the most humble man to ever walk the earth. And so I love that you brought that up, because I do believe that there's a there's a genuine goodness and humility and strength, a healthy strength in knowing who you are and what you're capable of before your personality traits, your physical traits, all that stuff. You are the greatest creation, the greatest being to ever have graced the planet, the most intelligent, complex, just beautiful creation. And that is worth celebrating, not stuffing under the rug in this kind of false humility of, oh, I don't want to, I don't want to seem whatever. Who cares what people think? I am who I am. And I have a lot of growing to do in this, but the people that can just sort of be in their bodies and know who they are and walk the walk and talk the talk. Lisa
Yes,
Nichols is a great example of that.
yes,
I'm like,
yes.
that is beautiful. And she knows exactly who she is and what she stands for. And yet at the same time, there's a deep sort of honoring of God in that. And I think that's beautiful.
Sachiko Tiana, ladies and gentlemen, in the studio with us today. It has been a pleasure and an honor to be with you. Thank you
Likewise.
for this time. We love you, oh man, and we support you. So let us know anything that we can do to support you in your journey. I love the work you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me, Rodney.
No, no worries. So, any last words before we wrap up?
Um, First of all, thank you again for everything you're doing. I admire the work you're doing in the world. And if there's anyone out there listening that wants to connect and join me on my journey on my podcast, please do. The thing I love about music, podcasts, and dreams is that there's more than enough to go around. And so we can all build this great, big, amazing community together. And I'm just grateful to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. There you have it, guys. Another episode of the Game Changer Mentality podcast. Thank you guys for listening once again. And remember to check us out on our Game Changer Mentality community at the Game Changer Transformation on Facebook. We love you. And until next time, stay blessed.